For Chapter 7, we're going to look at a payroll register. First, we're going to open a file that they have for us, and you can download this from your Canvas classroom, or if you downloaded the files that came with your textbook, you can find it there as well. So the file that we're looking for is called EA7-D1. So what they've done is they've already set up their payroll register. What they're looking for us to do is to input the equations that it's going to need in order to calculate our payroll. And then also they're going to want us to format the bottom of this a little bit to make it look a little better. Now, when we did payroll registers, we did them by hand, okay? What we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to set it up in Excel, and this will save you so much time because later on down the road, all the company will have to do is input the hours, how many hours they worked each month, and it will automatically calculate everything else for us. So the first thing they want us to do is go to cell H9, which is right here, overtime earnings for Lassiter Z. And we're going to insert what's called an if function. Now, an if function does exactly what it sounds like. If a cell equals is greater than less than X, then you're going to do this. If it's not, you're going to do this. Okay? So let's go ahead and stick one in here, and then we will we'll break it down and we'll look at how we came up with this equation. So we're going to click on the Formulas tab. And in the function library, we're going to come over here to where it says Insert Function. Right here, there's an area that says Select a Category, and we're going to choose Logical, and then choose the word If, and click OK. So this gives us a box. Now, our if-then statements, we can type them right into our boxes, which we're going to do later, or we can use this. So this is asking us, what is your logical test? Okay, and I'm on page 198 in your textbook. So our logical test for our overtime earnings is if this number, whatever the number is that's in F9, in this case, it equals 0. Okay, so we're going to type in F9 equals 0. If F9 equals 0, then we don't do anything, right? They're going to have us type in NA. Because if F9 equals 0, then they didn't earn any overtime, so we're done. We don't have to do any more steps. This third box is what you're going to do if F9 is false. Okay, if we click in the second box, this is what's going to happen if F9 is true. This is what's going to happen if F9 is false. And we know right now, clicking on cell H9, that F9 is false because this person had 5 hours of overtime. So if this person had overtime, mathematically, we would want to take the amount of hours they had and multiply it times their overtime rate. Okay? So if our logical test is false, then we're going to take F9, the amount of hours they had, and multiply it by G9, what their overtime rate was. Okay? So then we're going to click OK, and it calculates their overtime earnings. Now, we talked about, and we've used this fill handle before, but this was something new to me. If you double click this, it automatically fills it down as well. Okay, so now we're going to go to I9. Something we're also going to look at while we're working on these are some absolute equations, absolute formulas. Okay, we're going to go to I9, and in cell I9, we're going to type in another function. Okay, this one we're going to type in instead of using the box. We want to know the total earnings. Okay, so we get our total earnings from taking our regular earnings of E9 plus our overtime earnings of H9. But in some cases we have this NA, so we have to put in another if-then function. Before our if-then function, we're going to put in a round function so that it rounds this down to the nearest 2 decimals. Okay, because we are working with money. So the round function is pretty easy. You just type in equals round. And then let's say we wanted to round 5.6789 by 2 decimals. Okay, So you would type in equals round, whatever number you want to round, and you want to round it by 2. And press enter, and it does it. Okay. Now in our case, we're going to put an if-then statement inside of our round function. Okay. So this is working like math from the outside in. So right now we have this outside section that's going to round something. We're going to put an if-then statement inside of this. So if H9, which is where our overtime earnings are, if H9 equals NA, if H9 equals NA, comma, you're just going to give me E9. You're just going to give me regular earnings. So if there's an NA, if there's no overtime, they're just going to list what they earned for a regular week. Now, if H9 does not equal N9, or H9 does not equal NA, so we put another comma, then we want to take E9, which is our regular earnings, and add H9, our overtime earnings. Okay, now in this case, we do have to put our ending parenthesis, and we're going to put in our comma and our 2 for our rounding. So if we look at our equation, let's start from the inside and work out. If H9 equals NA, so if our overtime earnings equals NA, then you're just going to list the regular earnings. If it doesn't, you're going to take the regular earnings plus the overtime earnings. Okay, so that's what this middle section is saying. The outer section is saying once you've done all of this, whatever number you come up with, you're going to round it to 2 decimal places. So if we press enter, this tells us that our total earnings are 522.5. Because in this case, our if statement was false. It was not NA. So it took E9 plus H9 and gave us the total. Okay. So again, we're going to come down here and double click on this one and it fills it down. Going to J9, if we look on page 197, they give us a chart that gives us our FWT and our SWT, our federal withholding and our state withholding. So we're going to go ahead and just enter these numbers into the computer. We don't have to calculate anything here. It gives them to us. So we're just going to take a minute and enter these. Whoops. Okay, so those are pretty simple. Now, this is where it's going to get a little more complex. Okay, I am over on page 202. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to type in the entire equation, and then we're going to go back and dissect it, because I think that's the easiest way to do this. So go to cell L9. Okay, go to cell L9. We're going to type in, and I'm on page 202, step 2, equals round, and we know what the round function does. We're going to put an if in here. Now, the thing with Social Security, if we look down here at the bottom, we have a thing that says Social Security wage base, Social Security percentage, and we have a name and prior earnings. Okay, so Lassiter has prior earnings of $8,900. We need to look at this number and compare it with the $118,500. Because if this number is larger than this, then they don't pay any more Social Security. If this number is smaller than this one, then they need to pay Social Security. So if I-27, which is where his prior earnings are, you can see down here, it just turned blue, is greater than L-24, which is right here, Social Security base, then this is going to equal a 0. Okay? Just a very basic, comparing those two, if this one's greater than this one, it's 0, you're done. You don't have to go any further. Okay? Now, we're going to do what's called a nested if function. So we're going to put an if inside of an if. Okay, we have if I-27 is greater than L-24, then it's going to be 0. But if it's not, this is where we're going to put the next if function. So now we're going to look at is I-27, those prior earnings, plus I-9, our total earnings for this paycheck, are less than L-24. Okay, so if those are less than 24, then we're going to take I-9 and multiply it by the Social Security percentage that's found in L-22. Okay, so if we add together our prior earnings plus our total earnings, and those are still less than the Social Security wage base, we're going to multiply our total earnings from the wage base. If they are not less than that base, please note that comma, then we're going to take L-24, which is that base, minus I-27, which is our prior earnings, and multiply that times L-22, our rate. And then round the whole thing off by 2 decimals. Okay? And then we press enter. So we get 3240 because this person, their prior earnings were less than the wage base. Okay? So they automatically just take the total earnings times the Social Security percentage. And each person is going to be a little different because each person is in a different situation. Now, here's one of the problems that we're going to encounter. We have this beautiful equation that does exactly what we want it to do. If we double click this line, this fill handle, and fill it down, they all say 0. Well, now we can scroll down and look. We know that these are not less than this wage base. So we know that we know that these are less than this wage base. So we know that something went wrong somewhere. Okay. So we're going to go back to L9. What this did, if we look here, we want this cell, which is L24, which we have typed in multiple places. If we look at the next one down, it changed it to L25. We need to create what's called an absolute reference, a reference that's not going to change. So every place we have L24, we are going to put a $ before the L and before the 24 to show that, hey, this needs to stay here. Okay, you cannot change this reference. Has to stay at L24. L22 is the same situation. L22 is pulling from that percentage. We also want that to stay as an absolute. Okay, and I'm using my F4 key to make those $ magically appear. Once we do that, press enter. Now go ahead and double click that fill handle again. And now it makes more sense. Okay, the second one is 0 because 214 is greater than 118. This third one is 118,250, which means they only took $250 and multiplied it times the 6.2. Okay, let's dissect this a little bit. Let me pull up. I have another one that I already created here. And I want to look at this. Let me pop back to the one we were using. Whoops, this one. And paste this here so we can look at it. And all I did here, and you don't have to recreate this, I just want to go over this with you. So here's the equation that we're looking at. Okay, this is the great big long equation that we just typed in. So what this equation is saying is if Lassiter's prior earnings are greater than the Social Security wage base, then enter 0. And that's what this part of the equation does. Okay, so if his earnings are greater than the wage base, enter 0. The next part of the equation, this if I-27 plus I-9, if they are not, then look at the prior earnings plus the total earnings. If they are less than the Social Security base, then multiply the total earnings times, which is I-9, times Social Security percentage, L-22. If they are not less, I need to move this over here. If they are not less than the wage base, then subtract the wage base and the prior earnings and multiply those by the Social Security percentage. And hold on, I lost part of the equation somewhere. There it is. Okay, so if they are not less, then we're going to subtract the wage base and the prior earnings and multiply that times Social Security percentage. So this right here is just a breakdown of what we did up above of this equation. Okay, let's move on to our Medicare. So M9, again, we want to keep typing in that round because we want it to round things to the 2 decimal places. So Medicare, we're just going to take I-9 and we're going to multiply it times M22. Now that M22 we want to turn into a dollar sign, so you can press F4 and it'll add those dollar signs. And we want to put in our comma 2 to round. Again, we put those dollar signs in to create an absolute reference, so it's referencing this and it doesn't change when we fill it. So we can double click our fill handle and it fills it straight down. Now the next 2 columns are going to use what are called a VLOOKUP. They're going to use a table. Okay, they're going to look up some information in a table. So we're looking at our hospital donation and our school donation. Okay. If we look over here on the left, we have a table here. So if their total earnings were a specific amount, they donated so much to the hospital and so much to the school. And we're going to use that table to create an equation here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go from B25 to D29. We're just going to highlight the data that's in that table. And in this formula section, there's a section called defined names. Okay, and we're going to define a name. You don't have to click on the arrow next to it, but just click on the word define name. And all we're doing is naming this section of the spreadsheet. We're naming this table so that we can tell our equation where to go to get this information. So we named it donation percentages and we're going to click OK. Nothing happens on your screen except the name of this range pops up here in the name box. Go ahead and click on cell N9. And I'm on the top of page 206. Again, we're going to use that round function because we want everything rounded. And we're going to create a VLOOKUP. Okay, so we're going to type in VLOOKUP with its opening parenthesis. And we want it to look up I-9, which is its total earnings, comma. We're going to type in do, D-O, and right here it says donation percentages. So you could type out donation percentages or you could just double click on it. So we're telling it to take the number from I-9 and look it up in the donation and percentages box. And we want to pull the number in the second column. We want to pull the hospital donation percentage. So we're going to stick a 2 in there to tell it it's pulling from the second column. And we want to multiply that number in that second column times the I-9. Put in our comma 2 for our rounding and press enter. And it has now calculated our hospital donation. So it looked at I-9. It found this 522 in this chart. It looked at the second column and it multiplied this 2% times I-9. And it gave us that 1045. Okay. Now, we need, if we were to drag this down, it's going to move our donation percentages, like it's going to move things that we don't want it to move. So our I-9 in here, and I'm up here in the formula bar, this I-9, we want this column to stay, which means we want a dollar sign right before the I. We always want it to pull from I. We don't want it to pull from J. Okay. And then this I-9 down here, again, we wanted to pull from the I. So we're going to put the $ before the I. So it'll always stay in that column. Press enter. Okay, we're going to take this hospital donation because this is using these two are using the exact same VLOOKUP. We're going to paste it over here into the school donation. Now obviously that gives us the exact same number. We said that our hospital donation was in column 2, but our school donation is in column 3. So if we go here and we change this 2 to a 3, so now it's pulling the number out of column 3 of the table, and press enter, it now calculated our school donation. So now we're going to click and drag N9 to O9 and double click our fill handle, and it fills it straight down. Okay, P9, if we go back one page to page 205, P9, it tells us what our check numbers are. So we're just going to input those. Now we could use the computer to do this for us. The problem with that is, what if we end up having to void a check? We wrote it out wrong. The computer ate the check when it was trying to print it, and we have to change the check number. You go back and change it, but it's kind of a security check to type them in on your own as opposed to having the computer do them for you. Okay. Next thing we're going to do in Q9, we need our computer to calculate the net pay. So we know that our total earnings, 522.5, minus all of our deductions is going to give us our net pay. Okay, so that's exactly what we're going to type in, equals I9 minus the sum of J9 through P9, and press, oops, forgot my parentheses. Sometimes they have to have the parentheses, sometimes they don't. Oh, I put P9. I didn't mean P, I meant O. We're not pulling the check number. There we go. And then we can just pull that down. Okay, H16, they wanted you to copy and paste the formula through, but whichever way you would rather do it. In H16, we're putting in an auto sum of the ones above, so equals sum of H9 to H13, and press enter. See, in that case, I didn't need the parenthesis. And then again, it wants you to copy the equation straight across, but really you could just drag and then maybe copy it over here. So you have the equation in all those cells. Now, the last step they want us to do is just to make this payroll register, just to clean it up a little bit. We have a lot of empty space going on. Our tables are kind of everywhere. So we're just going to make this look a little bit better. So we're going to take B24 to D29, which is this table right here, and we're going to move it to B19. Now you can click and drag it, you can cut and paste it, however you want to do that. We're going to take B26 to G31. So all of those blank spaces. On your Home tab, there's a button that says Delete. We're going to delete those cells, but we want to shift our cells left. So we want to move all of this stuff to the left. So we're going to click OK. So there, it automatically moved to the left. And now we're going to take this L21 to M24. We're going to give it some borders so that we can keep track of this better. So we're going to come up here to our Home tab. There's a Borders button, and we're going to choose All Borders. We're also going to move this up to L19. And we're going to take rows 18 and 25, and we're going to change their row height, to 7, just to make them smaller, keep things closer together. Okay. C6 to 06. So the words earnings and deductions, we're going to make those bold. And then B7 all the way over to Q7 or Q8, we're going to make those italics. I'm going to come down here to net pay. So grab Q9 to Q13. We're going to do a little conditional formatting here. Click on conditional formatting, and we're going to top, bottom, rules, and top 10 items. We want to see who's making the most money, okay? We want the top 2. Who are the people that are making the most money? Who are the people who maybe are having a little too much overtime? Maybe that's someplace we can cut some costs. We're going to change this to green fill with dark text. Or maybe we're looking for like that employee of the month, the one that's always willing to work the overtime, okay? And then click OK. Okay. Make sure you save your work and you can move on to your assignment.